I'm Brenda, a 30-year-old single person who finds it difficult to find love. I needed a night out after splitting up with my unfaithful ex, and Lisa's party looked like the ideal getaway. Away from drama, my existence is fairly straightforward. I own a small, elegant boutique in the city where I sell designer clothing to customers who don't bother to check price tags. As I entered Lisa's crowded apartment, the noise of the crowd and the music were so loud that I could not hear my own thoughts. Lisa excitedly grabbed my arm as I was surveying a peaceful area and grabbing a drink. "Brenda, you succeeded. Look, I want you to get to know this person. Finance stuff and all that, he's right up your alley," she exclaimed over the music as she pulled me through the crowd of revelers. Before I realized it, I was grinning cheekily in front of a tall guy. He gave off the impression of someone who was confident in his wealth and wouldn't hesitate to share it with you. "This is Nathan, Brenda." Lisa gave us a wink and said, "Nathan, meet Brenda. She owns the choicest clothing store downtown." Before I could object, Lisa departed. Nathan gave me a hard handshake and a questioning look. "A clothes store? Really? Such sounds like a great time." "I work in finance myself, doing corporate investments and all that kind of stuff," he continued in a smooth, assured voice. "Indeed is fantastic. I get to meet a lot of interesting folks," I said, trying not to roll my eyes as I took a sip of my drink. Talking business was the last thing I wanted to do. "So why haven't I seen you around earlier?" "A stunning woman like you, I wouldn't forget," he said, drawing nearer than necessary. I stepped back and arched an eyebrow, likely due to the fact that I spend more time examining fabric samples than attending financial galas. "What is your narrative?" "Big deals and all the numbers." He let out a real, hearty laugh. "Quite a bit. I'm off work tonight, so it's not as glamorous as it seems." "What do you think is the worst thing about having your own company?" "Inventory days and holiday returns," I said, finding myself becoming more receptive to the conversation. "And you? What catches you off guard in the finance industry?" "Rules and the never-ending paperwork." "Anyway, enough about work. What are your hobbies?" With a deceptive smile, Nathan inquired. I was talking to a finance guy at a loud party about things I hadn't planned to talk about, like my love of vintage jazz recordings and thrift store excursions. Nathan was truly involved in the conversation, asking questions and giving personal anecdotes on where to discover the best music venues in the city. He wasn't just listening. The party was coming to an end before I realized how quickly the evening had gone. Nathan turned to face me, then back to his watch. I had no idea that I would talk to someone so fascinating for the entire evening. "Can I see you once more?" I wavered, memories of our recent breakup racing through my head. "I'm not really looking to jump into anything new," I said. "No demands. To put it mildly, it will include exchanging more music and possibly even some coffee." He made a suggestion. "I know of a restaurant that hosts live jazz on weekends." It was like entering a vortex of jazz concerts and spontaneous city walks when I started dating Nathan. Even though I had told him right away that I wasn't seeking to become serious about anything, our time together seemed to erode my resolve a little bit each day. We had been dating for a while. Fall was beginning to bite, and one evening Nathan called and said, "Hey Brenda, put on that fancy red dress you love so much. I'm going to surprise you. As long as the surprise involves some decent food, you've got yourself a deal," I said, curious. "I'm going hungry." He laughed. "Trust me, you'll want to be there." We crossed paths outside my shop. He appeared as though he had just stepped out of a magazine as he leaned against his automobile. As he opened the passenger door for me, he said, "Ready for that surprise?" He kept the whereabouts a secret while we traveled, entertaining me with constant banter that made me feel both relaxed and a little nervous. To last, we arrived to a quaint little jazz club downtown, the kind with few tables and dim lighting. We followed the host to a private area close to the stage. But Nathan's focus was entirely on me, not the band. He leaned in and whispered, "Brenda, I know you said you wanted things light, but I've got to be honest with you." Midway during a melancholic saxophone solo. "Oh yeah." As I took a taste of my drink, my heart began to beat faster. Honest about what? About this. He extracted a tiny velvet box from inside his jacket. When he opened it, a tasteful, understated ring caught the gentle light. "Brenda, I adore you so much. I want to do more than simply hang around and go on dates. I'm craving more. With you, I want everything. Are you going to marry me?" I remained silent for a while. His sincere and optimistic expression was all that was visible as the music gradually faded away. That's when my pragmatic side came out. "This is huge, Nathan. You are aware of my fear of plunging back into the depths." I know. He grabbed my hand in a hurry to comfort me. "But consider this. We work really well together. You chuckle at my jokes. We both can't dance to save our lives, and I act as though I understand art because you do. What more is required?" In spite of myself, I laughed. Maybe a bit more practice on the dance floor. Anything with a smile. So what do you say? I did want this, us, a future, everything, as I looked into his eyes. At last I responded, yes, feeling more at ease saying it than I had anticipated. "Yes, I'll marry you." After Nathan put the ring on my finger, we celebrated the only way we knew how. By staying late into the night, discussing everything and nothing, and beginning to plan our next trip together. The next day, Nathan was eager to introduce me to his mother, Mrs. Harper. We met for brunch at a quaint little cafe she loved. Right off the bat, Mrs. Harper was all smiles and open arms. "Oh, Brenda, I'm so thrilled Nathan found someone like you. I just know we're going to be great friends," she said as we settled into our seats. She began chatting away, filling me in on all the little details of Nathan's life. "You know, he absolutely loves lasagna. I must give you my recipe. And if you really want to spoil him, make him his favorite chocolate pecan pie. He's just like his father, can't resist a good pie." The brunch went by in a blur of laughter and shared stories, making me feel a little more part of Nathan's world, a world I was slowly but surely starting to love. It had been quite the reveal taking Nathan to the house where I grew up. It's this big old place that looks like it came straight out of a storybook, all thanks to my dad's knack for playing the stock exchange. When we pulled up in the driveway, Nathan's eyes popped out of his head. "Wow, this place is incredible," he exclaimed, looking around like a kid in a candy store. "Yeah, Dad's done well for himself," I said, trying to play it cool, even though I was proud of where I came from. Inside, Nathan was polite, but I caught him more than once checking out the finer details of the house's decor and the art on the walls, even asking my dad about some of the antiques. It wasn't all bad, though. My parents seemed to like him, especially when Dad and Nathan started talking money and investments. My mom pulled me aside while the guys chatted. "He seems like a good man, Brenda," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "Very attentive, isn't he?" "Yeah, he's great." I smiled, though part of me wondered if his interest was more in the lifestyle my family had than in me. I shook off the feeling, not wanting to judge too harshly too soon. Later, as we were leaving, Nathan couldn't stop talking about the house. "One day, I'd love a place like this. Imagine the parties I could throw, the people I'd host," he mused, already daydreaming. I nudged him lightly, bringing him back to earth. You mean the kind of home we could build for our kids, right? Of course, that's what I meant, he corrected quickly with a sheepish grin. Our kids would love it, wouldn't they? Definitely, I agreed, though his initial comment lingered in my mind longer than I wanted it to. Fast forward to today, our wedding day, and all those jitters and doubts seemed trivial compared to the joy of the moment. We decided on a simple ceremony at a local garden. It was intimate, just close family and friends, no big spectacle. As I walked down the aisle, seeing Nathan waiting for me, all my worries melted away. His smile was all I needed to reassure me of our future together. After we were declared husband and wife, the celebration began. It was laid back, just how we wanted it. We danced, laughed, and enjoyed the company of our loved ones. During the reception, my dad clinked his glass for a toast. To Brenda and Nathan, may your life together be as beautiful and enduring as this day. Remember, the best things in life aren't things. They're the moments and memories you create together. As the party carried on into the evening, I felt a profound sense of contentment. Whatever uncertainties the future held, we were ready to face them together. I was ready to face them. With Nathan by my side, life after the wedding was a whirlwind. Nathan and I were settling into married life, adjusting to each other's habits and routines when we were hit with a curveball. My dad, who had always been the pillar of strength in our family, got sick, really sick. It was cancer, and it came out of nowhere, or so it seemed. We spent a lot of time at the hospital, and during one of those visits, Dad decided to have a heart-to-heart with me. Nathan was there too, fetching coffee down the hall. When he returned, he found us whispering seriously and sat down, his face etched with concern. Brenda, there's something important I need to tell you, Dad said, his voice weaker than I remembered it ever being. He took a deep breath, grasping for every bit of strength he could muster. I've made some decisions about the estate. You're going to inherit $3 million. The room felt silent for a moment, even with the constant beeps and murmurs of the hospital around us. I didn't know what to say. It was a lot of money, a life-changing amount. Nathan, who had just sat down with the coffees, almost choked on his drink. Wow, that's a lot of money, he stammered, trying to keep his composure. I could see the wheels turning in his head, and something in his expression shifted. It was subtle, but it was there, a flicker of something that wasn't just surprise. It looked a lot like calculation. Yeah, it's a big responsibility. I responded, feeling suddenly very tired. It's not just about the money. It's about keeping Dad's legacy alive, making sure we manage everything responsibly. Dad nodded, looking relieved that I understood the weight of his decision. I trust you, Brenda. You know what's important. Nathan quickly added, Of course, we'll take care of everything, sir. It's what's best for our future, right, Brenda? I noticed the weight in his statement and felt a twinge of discomfort. This was suddenly about us, not just me. Yeah, sure, I said, but my mind was racing. This wasn't how I wanted this conversation to go. After that day, things changed. Nathan started talking more about investments, real estate, things we could do with the inheritance. One night over dinner, he brought it up again. So I was thinking about the money. He began, not wasting any time. We should start looking into some properties, maybe even consider some high-yield investments. I was pushing my food around my plate, not really hungry anymore. Nathan, can we slow down a bit? This isn't just free cash to throw around. It's my dad's hard-earned money. We need to be careful, think things through. He looked a bit taken aback, but recovered quickly. Of course, I get that. I just think it's a good opportunity to grow our assets, make sure we're set for the future. The words hung in the air, heavy and a bit too presumptuous for my taste. Yeah, I know, but let's just handle one thing at a time. Okay. My dad's still here, and that's what matters now. Nathan nodded, but the eager glint in his eye didn't match his agreeable tone. Sure, Brenda, whatever you think is best. The weeks following Dad's passing were some of the hardest I'd ever lived through. The world seemed to move on, but I was stuck, my grief a constant shadow. Nathan and his mom, Mrs. Harper, were around a lot, supposedly to help out. One night, their true colors showed through in a way that rocked me to my core. It was late, and I couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts, too much sadness. Mrs. Harper had been all sweet and comforting, hovering around me with hot teas and sympathetic smiles. Brenda, dear, you look exhausted. Why don't you take one of these sleeping pills? It'll help you rest, she suggested, holding out a small pill. Okay, I'll do that, I muttered, not keen on the idea. I didn't want to miss a moment. I didn't want to blur the edges of my memories of Dad with drug-induced sleep. She shrugged, placing the pill on the kitchen counter. I'll be in the living room if you need anything. I nodded, pretending to head to my room, but something felt off. Curiosity, or maybe intuition, nudged me to stay awake, to listen. I crept back towards the living room, the floor cold under my feet, my heart pounding in the silence. Their voices were hushed but heated. I paused at the edge of the room, hidden by the darkness. Are you sure she took sleeping pills? She's been so stubborn lately. Nathan's voice was frustrated and sharp. Mrs. Harper's reply was smooth like honey. Give it time. She's vulnerable, grieving. Now's our chance to get things moving. That money should be in your account, not just sitting there. Yeah, and soon. I'm tired of playing the supportive husband. Once we get the cash, I can finally move on, maybe find someone younger, more fun. The air in my lungs froze, my heart skipped beats. This was not the man I married. This was a stranger speaking so coldly, so calculatingly. His mother chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. Just make sure I get my share. A new house, perhaps. That cute little convertible we saw the other day. Of course, Mom, you'll get whatever you want. Brenda's too dumb to figure it out before we clean her out. I felt sick, my hands trembling. How could I have been so blind? The love, the marriage, it was all a setup. Quiet as a shadow, I backed away, needing space to think, to breathe. I went to my room, locked the door, and sat on the bed, my mind racing. They were plotting against me, planning to strip me of everything. Morning came, and I acted as though nothing had happened. At breakfast, Nathan and his mother exchanged glances, their smiles too sharp, too knowing. Nathan brought up the inheritance again. Brenda, we really should start thinking about that investment. It's what your dad would have wanted for us to secure our future. His words made my stomach turn, but I kept my face neutral, my voice calm. I'll think about it, Nathan. Let's see what the lawyers say about the best way to handle everything. The days following my father's funeral were some of the hardest I'd ever had to pretend through. I played the part of the devastated daughter to a T, all while watching Nathan and his mother make plans for a future funded by my inheritance. His mother wasn't even trying to hide it anymore, openly browsing for new houses and cars on her laptop in the living room, as if the money was already hers. Meanwhile, Nathan was barely home. He stayed late at work, came home later than usual, and even when he was around, he was glued to his phone. One evening, as he was taking a shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand next to our bed. Without thinking, I glanced at the screen and saw a message pop up from some woman. It wasn't just friendly, it was flirty. I felt a weird mix of anger and relief. Anger because of the betrayal, but relief because it just proved what I already knew. A cheater in one part of life is a cheater in all parts. That weekend, I told Nathan I needed to clear my head and visit my mom. He barely looked up from his phone, just nodded and mumbled something about taking all the time I needed. Driving to my mom's place felt like escaping a prison. As soon as I saw her, the weight of everything started to lift. I told her everything. The overheard conversation, Nathan's late nights, the messages. I laid it all out. Mom was curious at first. That rotten scoundrel. She exploded, pacing the kitchen, playing happy families while plotting behind her back. But then her anger turned to laughter, a deep rolling laugh that filled the kitchen. Oh, Brenda, they think they're so clever, but they've got another thing coming. Just wait until the wills read. They won't know what hit them. Her confidence was infectious. For the first time since that awful night, I felt like maybe things would turn out all right. So we just wait. That's it. That's it, she confirmed. Let them make their plans. They're building castles in the air, and we're about to bring them right down to the ground. Back at home, Nathan was exactly where I left him, phone in hand, probably texting that woman. But I didn't care anymore. I had something they didn't, a plan and the truth on my side. I went to bed that night not with a heart heavy with dread, but with a spark of strategy and the anticipation of justice soon to be served. The day to read my dad's will finally arrived, and you could cut the tension in the lawyer's office with a knife. Nathan and his mom were practically buzzing with excitement, thinking they were about to become filthy rich. I sat there, feeling like I was about to watch a show, knowing full well what the finale would be, thanks to my mom's hint. We all gathered in the small, stuffy office, the air thick with anticipation. Nathan kept glancing at his watch, and his mom was tapping her foot nonstop. You'd think they were waiting for a lottery draw the way they were carrying on. The lawyer, Mr. Jenkins, cleared his throat and opened the thick folder in front of him. Thank you all for coming today. As per Mr. Thompson's wishes, I will now read the last will and testament. Nathan leaned forward, practically on the edge of his seat. His mom whispered, "Here we go," under her breath, rubbing her hands together like she was about to receive her birthday present. Mr. Jenkins began with the usual legal jargon, but soon got to the part everyone was waiting for. To my daughter Brenda, I leave the sum of $3 million. Nathan's mom let out a little squeal, and Nathan shot me a look that was meant to be comforting, but came off as smug. I just stared straight ahead, impassive. Mr. Jenkins continued, however, it must also be noted that along with this inheritance, there are debts incurred by Mr. Thompson amounting to $4 million. The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Nathan's face went from smug to shocked to pale in a matter of seconds. His mom was furious. This must be some mistake. We need to see the documents, the proof. Mr. Jenkins, ever the professional, started handing out copies of the financial statements and debt notices. Everything is documented here. If you have any questions, you can consult with your own legal advisor. As the reality of the situation sunk in, my mom stood up. Her voice was calm but carried across the room. Nathan, you need to understand. My husband had a weakness for gambling. He made debts, borrowed from people, from banks. I hope you'll be noble in this situation and help Brenda with these debts. It appeared as though Nathan and his mother had been struck. Their dismay soon gave way to indignation. Assist with debt payment? Do you really think this way? We are not reimbursed for any expenses we did not incur. Nathan's mother yelled, losing all pretense of decorum. Nathan disengaged just as quickly. Ellie, I want a divorce. In the divorce decree, we'll say that none of us is claiming any assets or money from the other. That concludes it. I felt a mixture of comfort and revulsion as I stared at him. All right, Nathan, I agree if that's what you want. We can prepare the divorce decree. My mother gave me a comforting grip and a reassuring gaze as they walked out of the office, dejected and furious. It will all work out, Brenda. It's best for us if they go. Following the execution of the divorce decree, Nathan and his mother were forced to reveal their actual selves one final time. They were snickering behind me as we were leaving the attorney's office. Nathan's mother grinned. Well, at least she will have $1 million in the hole, drowning in her father's debts now. Nathan chuckled and turned to face me. Well, Brenda, good luck handling that mess. I was laughing so hard I thought they were confused. Nathan scowled. What is the reason for your laughter? My mother intervened at that point, cool as always. Up until then, she had been silent and had only observed. Because you're completely wrong, Nathan. As you can see, I have always been in charge of handling our money. Bless his soul, your father-in-law wasn't the financial whiz that everyone believed him to be. Their arrogant looks wavered. What are you discussing? Nathan's mother lost it. With a hint of hardness in her eyes, my mother grinned. All of the profitable stock deals and investments were made by me. I am estimated to be worth $50 million. Brenda's inherited obligations are easily paid off by me. Nathan had a pale face. Are you serious? Are you for real? Yeah, Mom went on, and since I'm feeling generous, I've also decided to give Brenda a lovely home that she won't have to share with anyone, particularly not a gold digger. Their looks of disbelief were priceless. With his previous haughtiness gone, Nathan truly fell to his knees and stumbled, saying, Brenda, please, I didn't mean any of it. I was simply confused. I ignored him and his mother, who was still attempting to come to terms with the realization. I blocked their numbers from my phone as we were leaving. I didn't want to hear from them again after that. A few weeks later, word got around that Nathan was having problems. The BFFs were following him since his debts had finally caught up with him. He made an effort to connect, pleading for assistance through texts sent to pals in common. I remained steadfast. I told a friend to tell him I wish him the best of luck after he relayed his requests. That was the extent of my assistance to him.